a lot of you, some of you I haven't. I'm the Director of Education of the Society and Business Lab, which is a center within Marshall. And we do all kinds of things related to social enterprise. And one of the things that we love doing is every month we bring in an amazing field practitioner, someone who's really on the ground doing social enterprise, to join us for a lunch and learn, in which we lunch, as you all have been doing, and we learn. So I want to introduce Brianna, who's one of the Society and Business Fellows, an MBA student who's part of our program, who's going to introduce our excellent speaker today. Thank you guys for coming.
Hi everyone, good morning and afternoon for the MBAers. I'm so excited. Actually, Paul, our speaker today, a bunch of us met at Net Impact in Cornell this November, a trip led by the Net Impact team, Andrew and Drew here. And I saw him on a panel. He was so inspirational. I think it's one of those true business models that really is mutually beneficial for both the business and the environment that he's helping. And it's done entirely in a private business sector manner. He was named one of the top ecopreneurs of 2008, the top 10 ecopreneurs. And most importantly, he's a surfer and he loves the ocean. And I have to say, you all have accepted me as a Bruin, which is awesome, and he too is a Bruin. So let's celebrate the goodness of two great schools in LA. So welcome, Paul.
Thank you. Well, I was a Bruin and I was walking across the campus with Rachel and learned that I'm as old as her parents. So I was there when your parents were there, Rachel. But thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. The Net Impact conference that we were part of was an exciting opportunity to share new business models. This is the most fun for me, to talk to young business students that are entrepreneurs, and particularly entrepreneurs in a field where there's something cause-related. And that's where I've dedicated my life. And I was asked to talk a little bit about my own personal experience and what gravitated me to the environment and how it led me to a couple of businesses that I think have made an impact on the environment and have been very gratifying for me. I went to school, as Brianna said, at UCLA. I grew up in Manhattan Beach and grew up as a surfer. And I surfed every day, and I was surfing in a polluted Santa Monica Bay. With the rains that we've got last week, everyone knows just how bad it is after a rain event. And what I recognized when I was very young was that there was an industry, the contract cleaning industry, that was cleaning parking lots and industrial sites and manufacturing facilities and polluting Santa Monica Bay. All of the pollutants and detergents and so on that they were using was going right into the storm drain system and ultimately into Santa Monica Bay, polluting where I was surfing. My father is an engineer, my brother's an architect, and so I come from a family of kind of engineering minds and said, hey, if I could come up with a way to clean these types of facilities in a way that was compliant and that didn't pollute the environment, I could legalize an industry. I could change the industry to operate in a way that was ultimately good for the environment and compliant for the business owners, because in matters of waste, owners are deemed as generators. So the owners of these facilities actually had a great deal of liability when contractors operated illegally on their property. And so I pioneered something called urban watershed cleaning, a process called zero discharge, and won an award from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for the creation of those methods. And I went about calling on buildings, many of them in downtown Los Angeles, and hospitals and big manufacturing facilities, and started cleaning facilities and removing those pollutants and disposing of them compliantly. And my first business became very successful, and I was sort of immersed in the whole stormwater urban runoff issue at a time that was quite contentious here in Los Angeles. In the late 1990s, they passed some new environmental regulations, something called Total Maximum Daily Loads, or TMDLs. And cities started screaming about these new regulations, this is unfunded federal mandate, where are we going to get the money? And I started thinking, well, these cities, they not only need funding, but one of the requirements that they needed, one of the requirements of these new stormwater pollution prevention programs involved public education. And I thought to myself, well, they need money, but the public education part I didn't know anything about. I was more of a bricks and mortar engineering kind of problem solver. I started looking at public communications, media. I didn't know anything about media, but said to myself, well, why don't we solve this problem that these cities are faced with with a program like Adopt a Highway. We'll call it Adopt a Waterway. I live near the water, you know. I'll go to the cities and see if they'll let me put up signs on high traffic commercial streets. We'll put corporate logos on them, and we'll fund infrastructure projects that will help solve the problem, and it'll be part of a public education campaign. And sure enough, I was able to found the Adopt a Waterway program, and lo and behold, I was in the first part of the media business. I was in the outdoor advertising business. And that got started here in Southern California, and then I grew it into other cities throughout the United States, big cities, small cities, East Coast, West Coast, 'cause I wanted to sort of perfect the business model. And I have always been you know, sort of intrigued or focused on broader environmental issues. And something else was happening in the environment at that time, and that is, of course, climate change. And what happened was when the US federal government did not sign the Kyoto Protocol, cities decided on their own that they would begin to look at the goals and objectives of Kyoto and try to solve problems more locally. And Mayor Nichols of Seattle became the first mayor in the United States to embrace the goals and objectives of Kyoto. He said, I'm going to do this here in Seattle. He knew that would only be symbolic if he didn't go out and evangelize and get other cities on board. And he went out and evangelized, and there are now more than 1,000 cities in the United States that have climate action plans, or what they call municipal climate action plans, which are essentially the adoption of the goals and objectives of Kyoto. There are about 34 states that now have statewide climate action plans, and our goal at EcoMedia has been to help these local governments. We're doing it here in the United States exactly the opposite of what they're doing in Europe. This has been a sort of bottom-up approach rather than a top-down approach. One of the things that we're talking about today is, can business models ultimately save the world? Can they make an environmental impact? And my hope, not my hope, my certainty, my absolute certainty is that they do, and they can, and that we absolutely must, because as you can see, the US federal government is not going to solve our problems, particularly around climate change. And the things that we're going to implement are going to be local. They're going to be done in the cities, the counties, and the states. And so as my Adopt a Waterway program got out into local cities, mayors started saying to me, is there anything else you can help me with? Can you help me with this sort of broader range of environmental issues? And I said, you know, I'd like to try to help you with your municipal climate action plan. And so I changed the name of my Adopt a Waterway program to EcoZone. And the way this company works, the name of my company is EcoMedia. And there are two primary pillars to what we do. The first is the EcoZone program. And the EcoZone program provides critical resources to local governments, cities and counties and states. And we provide three critical resources to these local governments. We provide community outreach and education on television, radio, print, outdoor, the full spectrum of media assets. And our goal is to inspire citizens to make lifestyle changes, consumers to make different buying decisions so they can be stewards themselves. And then secondly, and this is what's very, very, very important to me, back to sort of my engineering days, I'm into bricks and mortar. I need to see physical projects happen as a result of my work. And we help fund solar panels on city halls, public libraries, schools. I don't know how many of you fly in and out of Long Beach Airport, but we funded the solar panels at Long Beach Airport. That was our program. We fund green schools initiatives all over the country, where we go into schools and do everything from solar installations to energy efficiency retrofits to painting walls with no VOC paints and recycled carpets. And it's astonishing what you see from students that attend these greener, healthier schools. Their test scores go up, their attendance goes up. The attendance even goes up for the teachers. So we have a lot to do in this country to put our young students and citizens in healthier classrooms. So we plant thousands of trees in urban cities. And then third, we provide advice and direction to these local governments on the kinds of projects that should be funded with the money that we provide. What you'll find, cities like New York and San Francisco, they're on the cutting edge. But there are a lot of cities in this country that wouldn't really know how to spend the money efficiently. You could give them the money, it'll sit in a checking account and may not be leveraged to the extent that the money is used properly. So we've put together an advisory board. It's made up of US EPA's Energy Star, that little blue logo that you see on appliances, the US Department of Energy, NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, the US Green Building Council, USGBC. We do a lot of work with them, particularly around greening for schools. So we brought together really bright, capable folks that can help us decide how money is best spent. So we do all of that for local governments at no cost. So where does the money come from? It comes from the other side of our business. We're a media company. And I had no idea that I would ever end up in the media business, but here I am. And we partner with the CBS Corporation. So EcoMedia leverages the local television stations, radio stations, bus shelters and billboards and transit types of advertising, their online properties. And what EcoMedia does is something that's quite different in sort of the green media space. I'll speak from time to time at what they'll call sort of green media conferences. Frankly, I don't think there's anything green about media if it doesn't green, if it doesn't actually physically green something. And I think, you know, in this country, we've gotten used to watching messages from big corporations that talk about, you know, green, and you sit back as a viewer, as a citizen, and you're like, how does this affect me? At the end of the day, what is this doing for me? And what I looked at in media was that green and media work backwards. They don't operate the way media normally works. What I mean by that is media is set up to do it for you, right? So you have a certain expectation or experience in mind when you come to media. And that is, maybe at the end of a long day, I want to watch a basketball game. That's what I want to do at the end of my day. Well, you know, 7-foot guys are going to play basketball for me while I sit on my couch and have dinner and drink a beer. They're going to do it for me. And instead, if I come home at the end of a long day, I want to laugh, I want to watch a comedy. They work all day to try to figure out how they're going to make me laugh. If I don't make me laugh, I'm turning the channel. Well, now comes green. Green on television has gotten into the point of saying, you need to get off your couch and change a light bulb. You need to do this, that, and the other thing. And the problem is, it's like, wait a minute, you need to green for me. This transaction is supposed to be you doing it for me. And so I wanted to move media into the place where the actual transaction is fulfilled. When you watch a commercial that is ultimately either produced by EcoMedia or sold by EcoMedia, every commercial you see does something in the local community where you live. And what we measure from the projects that we ultimately fund are three things. We measure jobs, cost, and carbon. So we're interested in the local green jobs we create. We're interested in the operating cost savings for the taxpayer. So if we, like we did in Long Beach, install solar panels and do energy efficiency, the city is paying a lower energy bill. Those monies are now available to teachers or policemen on the streets and so on. And so we're saving taxpayers money and then ultimately reducing CO2 emissions. We measure those CO2 emissions, we create carbon offsets, and we rebate the offsets back to the advertiser. So now advertisers can ultimately advertise their way to a lower carbon footprint. We've created the first form of what we would call sort of carbon offset advertising. And the CBS Corporation saw the value in what we were doing versus what some of the other networks are doing and saying, you know, for some it is, and I won't name any names, but for some it's dropping green themes into existing programming 2 weeks out of the year. And you're like, how much greener is the world? We have no idea. I wanted to see a media company get into the business so that we could measure the impact. And I think the word sustainability is thrown around, particularly around the environment. What we've tried to create is a business model that is sustainable. And what is not sustainable is the way in which we are living as humans on this planet. That's not sustainable. It's also not sustainable that the federal government's going to solve all our problems. It's just not. As you heard last night, the problems are so broad and so deep that the environment is just one of many, many issues. So if we as business people don't solve these problems, then we're in a very, very, very difficult spot. And back to why I love to talk to young entrepreneurs is that I believe that in your minds are the ideas. They're the technologies, the processes, the methods, the business models so that we can live here more sustainably. And for people who are all about business, fortunes will be made in discovering new energy sources and ways for us to live more sustainable. Jobs will be created, and we will be able to pass on to our children and grandchildren a better planet than we inherited. And this generation, your generation, gets it more than any other generation that's ever lived. I think when I go to even middle schools or high schools, it's amazing to see the way in which kids get excited about the fact that their school is being greened. I think back of when I was in high school, if someone showed up and said, we're going to do some energy efficiency and solar, and we're going to do this, that, and the other thing, whether we would have gotten excited about that. But I can tell you, when you go around this country and you see kids responding to the kinds of things you're doing to their schools, it's incredibly gratifying. For me, in terms of being a sort of a social entrepreneur, I think the way that I would try to sort of give you a sense of how my own business models have been developed, it's sort of like wearing glasses, a certain set of lenses. And for me, the environment has always been something that I've been passionate about. And so a bit fixated. And so as I go about my daily life, I look at every potential problem I see, or every problem I see, and I think about it through an environmental lens. How do I solve that problem, that environmental problem, in a way that's practical and sustainable? And my first business was evidence of that. This business, a couple of months ago, I was in New York City, and I actually lived part of my time in New York, and I was in the back of a cab, and I hate taking cabs. I take the subway. But there are times when I'm on a conference call, or I've got to stay above ground to keep working, and I felt guilty about being in a cab, and I thought to myself, how could we make cabs more sustainable, besides being hybrids or something like that? And if any of you have been in New York, they have these screens, these little kiosks in the back of the cab now. You can pay with your credit card and so on. And I thought to myself, the last thing that you see in this is cash or credit in terms of how you're going to pay. I thought, well, what if we added a third button? What if the third button was, would you like this ride to be carbon neutral? And it would run a calculation of the carbon footprint of your particular ride. And you could pay an extra 40 cents for a carbon neutral ride in a taxi. I thought, well, people probably won't select that very often. Maybe there's an ad model here. Maybe, a car company or maybe a bank could sponsor the carbon neutrality of your ride. So took this to the Taxi Commission and to Disney ABC, which runs all those kiosks, and sure enough, that's something that we're going to work towards rolling out. And so as entrepreneurs, your issues may be healthcare, they may be ending poverty, they could be any number of things. But as you wear those lenses and you look at things and you spin around them every single day, anywhere there is a problem, there is, well, for one, I hope a solution, and secondly, a business model. And business models that will ultimately create jobs and ultimately change the planet. I want to show a couple of things. See if I can work this today. We have created a new form of advertising. We've created a product. And we call that product Climate Action Media. And we define that as advertising that directly couples with the benefits arising from environmental projects in local communities. These are some of the things that we've done. Solar panels on Miami City Hall. These are the solar panels down on Long Beach. Green schools and planting thousands of trees and stuff all over the country. And it's been great fun to see advertisers ultimately being able to connect with consumers in a profoundly different way. Now, every time an advertiser reaches a consumer through eco-media, they are directly and measurably changing the quality of people's lives. And as far as I'm concerned, the $300 billion a year that's spent on advertising is largely ether. I mean, it just kills me that the commercials you guys are watching are $500,000 to $1 million to make. A primetime buy is $300,000 or $400,000. It's gone. Every 30 seconds, it's gone. It's gone. And that money is gone and never coming back. And we looked at that and said, what if we could harness that $300 billion and ultimately see part of it directly change the quality of the viewer or the consumer's life? And so now I want to talk a bit about the business model, okay? A conventional ad buy is an ad campaign, and it's ultimately the buy of media space or time. It's a billboard, it's a 30-second commercial, and ultimately you reach a consumer and that's it. But a green ad buy through Climate Action Media ultimately funds energy efficiency or renewable energy projects, it creates jobs, reduces CO2 emissions, improves the quality of life. And then we also create what Earth-Era Trust Carbon Credits. Earth-Era is the largest renewable energy company in the US, and 100% of the money spent on those offsets goes to creating new renewable energy projects here in the US. Solar, thermal, and wind, and so on. And I don't know how many of you, as you guys go to Mammoth, see this big solar thermal facility up in the Mojave. That is a NextEra project. And so we're producing carbon offsets. We then send those offsets back to the advertiser. An ad campaign typically lasts 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and it's gone. When you buy media through Climate Action Media, the projects that are being funded will be around for the next 3 to 4 decades. And so a campaign's impact is longer lasting. We talked about the municipal climate action plans. I won't go into too much detail there, but what we recognized was you've got a media problem. The media problem is the local media markets have gotten hammered. Okay, local TV is dying. Okay, it's off 30 to 50%. And so you've got all this available media inventory, whether it's billboards, television time, or radio time. And I said, wait a minute. If we were to take this unsold advertising and apply a value proposition for the advertiser, which is this media time is going to reach your consumer in a profoundly different way and ultimately change the quality of their life, we're now attracting advertisers to buying media inventory that was otherwise going to go unsold. So we're solving a media problem while we're solving an environmental problem. And what that has allowed the media companies to do is to increase their sales and to differentiate. In the case of CBS, now CBS is selling a distinctly different product. And we're attracting new advertisers, new budgets, and a disproportionate spend from an advertiser's overall budget because of the impact of this program. And so it was for me looking at an issue that was a problem for the media companies, a problem for the cities, and it was sort of like if these two things came together, we'd have a sustainable way of making sure that the media companies sold more of their inventory and in the case of the cities would see an ongoing revenue stream. The problem with environmental progress, and it takes planning. And a plan can't be executed unless you know there's money there. So we needed to give the cities a sense that there was an ongoing flow of money. And we've been able to do that with this program. I'm going to try to figure out how to do this. I want to show you, you guys a couple of things that gives you some sense for what we're doing. Let's see if I can make this work. Let's see here. I don't think this is going to work. Let's see if this will work. This is a show that we produced, Green Makeovers of Celebrity Homes.
Never been a better time to take responsibility for our environment than now. I'm Daisy Fuentes, and together with our green team of eco-experts, we will all learn new and exciting ways to conserve and protect our environment as we green Celebrity Homes. Planet Earth is home to all of us. Get ready for the ultimate home improvement, the EcoZone Project.
I was nervous because are we the best example of people that are living a green life? No, but Do we want to take more responsibility for our environment? Yes, we do.
My wife got really excited and I thought it'd be a fun family thing to do.
Hey, Patrick.
Hello. We're not really green here, you know.
I would argue that all of the sheep in New Zealand have done less damage to the ozone layer than these three dogs right here.
It's so great that it's become a hip new thing. I feel great that I'm doing this.
Oh, so Johnny saves the world.
I'm kind of old-fashioned in the way that I think a house should look. I was curious to see how can green methods be applied to a restoration project.
Ideally, we would be using reclaimed wood. This is Scott from Natural Walls, and they're using a product called American Clay Earth Blaster. And you have like 36 stock colors or something like that?
They're always coming up with new ones.
When you're not charging your cell phone, about 40% of the energy is just from standby power. I didn't know that.
Now you know.
The effects of the way that we're living are affecting places around the world. The problem is that people hear and they hear and they're like, well, what am I supposed to do about it?
I like to tell stories about making significant change in the world. I'm really lucky that I have a chance to do so. Maybe if you don't change your behavior right away, the next time you go and get your coffee, you're going to think to yourself, like, that plastic lid is going to outlive you.
I think of myself as somebody who's learning about green and sustainable design every day. I consider myself an eco advocate. Are you game, Ryan?
Count me in, Ryan. Green building means you're taking a second to think about the effects that that building is going to have on the future of the environment and the world. You don't have to give up anything to be socially conscious or to build green.
If you need any help at all, seriously, that's what Ryan's here for.
Seriously.
You made yourself right at home after all.
Step 1, remove old shower head. Abra el agua y déjalo correr 5 a 10 segundos. Should I be using this thing? What is this? Ryan!
Celebrities are stepping up and saying, yeah, I believe in the idea of sustainability, and I believe that it's important to promote awareness, and come on in, let's show people what can be done. I see an unplugged charger.
Oh, yes, I watched your video.
There have been a couple of aha moments for people when they talk to me. Cleaning products. The great thing about these products by Method are that they're really low cost, so it makes it really easy for people to go green. This soap, they turn bicycles into generators to make their soap.
You're full of
Allison Janney was great.
Great way to stay in shape and make soap.
PG&E and the EcoZone project was a perfect partnership. Paul Palazzotto, who is the CEO of EcoMedia and founded the EcoZone program.
Well, working with PG&E, we have got the solar paneling up.
Yes, and I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you have to come up.
Oh my gosh. Oh wow. This is great.
These panels, what you're looking at now, makes us the greenest LGBT community center in the country.
We also have a solar schools program where we're providing a curriculum about solar energy. Who remembers the name, Jade? The PV array. Excellent.
Green building is a really effective marketing tool. Companies like EcoMedia are coming along and saying, look at the benefits of building green, not only to your company and the world, but to your bottom line.
Nestle Waters has always done things to improve the environment.
We have springs all over the country that we use for our various brands, and so we're very cognizant of what's happening in the entire ecological system.
The EcoShape bottle is just the beginning of a plan to do more with our packaging.
You can feel it, it's so much lighter, it's 30% less plastic.
It's consistent with your commitment to the environment. And that really has a lot to do with the EcoMedia and the EcoZone program in terms of wanting to work with companies that are best in class. An opportunity like this is huge.
It's going to be pretty cool for you to cut out a block to have solar panels.
I know it's your job, but you're changing the world, and I think that's a great thing.
As the data comes in about global warming, we realize there's a ticking clock. I think people are starting to see that it's time. It's time to start looking for the solutions. And they're out there. It's just, we got to make it happen.
There's some additional content that I can show, but I know that we're probably light on time. So thought maybe you can answer some questions or show some additional media, but just to kind of summarize, my goal was to really look at the intersection of green and media and take it to the level where greening was actually happening and something physical was happening, and brands could attach their ad spend and their products to real, meaningful, measurable environmental change for consumers and for viewers. And in the case of CBS, have been a great partner in leveraging their media assets for the benefit of the communities that they serve. So with that, I'd love to answer some questions if you have any. Yeah.
When CBS pitches this to advertisers and potential advertisers, is this a separate pitch altogether? Is this part of their normal pitch? How do they go about presenting this to potential advertisers?
That's a really good question. It is a separate and distinct product. Because I get asked that question all the time. They're like, should I call you about my everyday ad? I'm like, no, I'm not here to sell just normal TV time. I'm here to sell this product we call Climate Action Media. And so it's something that's done outside of normal, but it's ad money, but it's a separate bot, a distinctly separate bot. Yeah.
I think I remember you saying something at the Net Impact conference that companies spend not only their ad budgets but also their sustainability budgets.
Yeah. For example, the PG&E part that you saw, that was actually done through like government affairs and environmental affairs. And what you're finding now is that these companies have sustainability budgets that are larger than their ad budgets. Take someone like Bank of America, for example. They have a $400 or $500 million ad budget. Their sustainability budget is $2 billion a year. You know, years ago, no one would have ever thought that a sustainability budget would be bigger than an ad budget. So it's extraordinary what's happening. And I think, you know, for any of the entrepreneurs that are in the room or looking at the environment as a place that you might spend your career, I'm telling you that the dollars that are being committed by these corporations are astonishing. And a lot of the work that's going on is really, really authentic. I mean, I struggle with some of these corporations myself, but a lot of companies are really taking a leadership position. Look at Walmart. I mean, here's a company like Walmart. I can tell you that their sustainability program is very authentic. They're doing some remarkable things. I don't know how many of you read about how Walmart will demand from its vendors a green label. So every product, it will probably be 18 to 24 months from now, but every product sold at Walmart will have a green label on it that talks about its carbon footprint. It's sort of, I guess, sort of cradle to grave or hopefully cradle to cradle lifespan, what the environmental impact of that product is. The interesting thing about this type of advertising is the way in which companies advertise can now actually minimize the environmental impact of the actual product. So my hope is that if they buy more of their advertising through Ecomedia, their green label will improve. That's the holy grail if we can accomplish that. So you know, again, it's in talking to young entrepreneurs, you know, the issue that we're faced with, despite all the sort of controversy that's in the news these days, is so serious that if we don't develop these business models and we don't attract the best and the brightest to come and help on our side of the equation, the environmental side of the equation, we're in trouble. And I think, you know, when you look at new job creation and you look at those projections and how they're going to come from the green space, I think the odds are that a good number of you in this room will gravitate to the green space because that's where the job creation is going to be. And that's where the fortunes are going to be made. Brianna?
Do you ever face any criticism from the green community because you actually are a sustainable business model?
No, I haven't. Although I think that's a really good question because I come from the environmental community myself, and I was concerned that when you start working with corporations, because these corporations are just not perfect, there's just no such thing, right? And I thought, well, and I can remember talking to a very sort of prominent environmentalist, I won't name names, and said, well, we were talking about the ad spend. I said, here's the deal. You can have some of the money they spend on advertising to improve the environment, or none of the money they spend. And he said, I guess it's money. And so, because it's money that would otherwise not go to the bricks and mortar projects. That doesn't mean we'll work with anybody, that Ecomedia will work with anybody. But I think what has changed, and I think it's really healthy, is that the environmental community has ultimately given the benefit of the doubt to some of these corporations. I mean, take BP, for example. When BP came out with what I thought was a very effective campaign, BP said BP doesn't stand for British Petroleum anymore, it stands for Beyond Petroleum. We're not an oil company, we're an energy company. And I think, 15 or 20 years ago, I think they would have been petrified to come out and make those claims. And fortunately, the environmental community let them come out. I think it's really important that we give these companies an opportunity to show that they're authentic. Because if we're going to have this contentious finger-pointing kind of attitude where if someone had said, come on, you're an oil company, go back to your bunker, hunker down, and get ready for the next round of regulations and lawsuits. I don't think that BP would have done a lot of the sort of important things they have done on the environment. Walmart is another case. I mean, had people said, oh, come on, they've come out and they've done some remarkable things. And so I think in fact, the NRDC actually has an office now down in Bentonville. And Walmart has actually worked very closely with the environmental community, making sure that their sustainability efforts are in fact meaningful. And so I think that sort of tension, some of that tension is gone. And I think that the folks that care the most about the environment realize, like we've been talking here this morning, or this afternoon, that these solutions are going to come from business. And if the environmental community just points the finger at business all the time, we're not going to be part of solving these problems. So. Yeah.
What's your personal sense of how much of the change, you know, I've seen a lot of change, and the sense of change from big corporations, is it their reaction to consumer demand, or a lot of it from within their own as green people are getting jobs and, you know, the entrepreneur changing from within?
I think it's a combination, but I think because of what I just talked about, which was some of these corporations thought, well, we're not even going to say anything until we sort of clean up our own sort of act, right? And so a lot of these companies started these sustainability initiatives, the internal, many, many years ago, right? And they began to look at, you know, their facilities, you know, moving from, you know, T12 fluorescents to T8s, T5s, and LEDs, and the trucks for their shipping and their packaging, and everything else. So there's been this internal sustainability push, and now, to your point, which is this consumer demand, it's like, okay, so how do we externalize this? One, how do we tell the consumer that we've done this, and how do we talk about our product in terms of how it fits into their lives? And they're asking you to make a choice, right? And I write articles for certain publications about the conscious consumer. And I think we, as consumers, have a certain responsibility in sustainability, in terms of what we do at retail, what the choices that we make at retail. The one thing I always say is the onus is on us, because the one thing you can be certain is that corporations will sell you anything they think you'll buy. Okay, so, and if consumers are saying they want these things, and they're not proving that at the cash register, then we got a problem. But if consumers are going to start to make the shift, which they are, this current economy isn't great, but they are, and as we begin to make those decisions and demonstrate to those companies that if they make more sustainable products, we'll buy them, then we'll have more choices and prices will go down, and you know how it works. And so, you know, my hope is that consumers will demonstrate their sense of sustainability at the cash register, and we'll see more choices and better prices. Yeah.
You mentioned that you guys look at 3 things after you're done with a project, one of them being carbon emissions reduction. How, or like in what ways can you measure that?
Well, in terms of energy usage, so there's two things when it comes to carbon offsets or carbon reductions. When you produce, like as you saw on the screen that we do, we produce solar installations. Okay, when you produce energy, you create something called green tax. Okay, and when you reduce energy, like in this building, you create something called white tax. So there's 2 ways to do things. There's you can produce energy or you can reduce energy. Dollar for dollar, reducing energy is far cheaper and far more effective. Solar incentives vary greatly around this country. California happens to be a good state. New Jersey's a good state. There's increasingly additional states that have good solar incentives, but it's nowhere near what it needs to be. And there's plenty to be done inside these buildings. When we do a solar installation, we always make sure that it goes hand in hand with the energy efficiency retrofit. It never makes sense to spend a bunch of money trying to produce energy outside when it's wasted inside. So the first thing you do is you go in and you say, okay, what is the carbon footprint? So to more directly answer your question, we work with what they call performance contractors. ESCOs, or energy services companies, ESCOs are like Honeywell, Johnson Controls, Siemens, these big giants that come in. I don't know who this university used, but probably one of those companies, Chevron Energy Solutions and others. And they'll come in and they'll do an energy audit and essentially assess the energy usage of a building. I'll make this simple, just this building. This building has a carbon footprint of X. Okay? If we make the following changes, it'll have the carbon footprint of Y. And those companies are paid by performance. That's how they make their living, is by measuring that change, and you pay for that change, or for the progress. Yeah.
So I'm not sure I understand the business model,
yeah,
which is sort of what I do. So when you showed the traditional media as being buyer to media as the traditional model, now you added two things underneath. There's no new money in that transaction.
Yeah, and let me explain. Okay, so you've got this unsold inventory, right? And you've got these new budgets that we talked about. A company like CBS says, I'll tell you what, we get, I'll make this up, 4 networks, right? There's ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. Let's just say, for the sake of conversation, they all get a 25 share. They all get 25 share of $1. And then to the gentleman's question in the back of the room, do we sell this like a distinctly separate product? Yes, we do. So CBS would normally get 25% of that spend. I go to that person and say, I'll tell you what, if you spend more of the money with CBS, if you raise their share and use, they don't have to use those budgets, and oftentimes don't. But if I can attract new money, CBS says, if you can attract additional advertisers to CBS and raise our share from 25 to 35 to 40, regardless of what those budgets, we will carve off a part of that money. And by the way, it's consistent with CBS's goals in terms of sustainability. And so what happens? CBS gets a greater share of the ad spend. And in exchange for a greater share of the ad spend, we then carve off a part of that additional ad spend and fund the projects. And so we then ultimately assist CBS, assist the community at the expense of the competitor.
And do consumers know about this at all, anywhere along this process?
Yes, and if I had my own computer, I would show you how we describe climate action media to the viewer, right? Because this ultimately doesn't mean anything if the viewer doesn't know what they're looking at. And then we do on-air promos, right? So stations have to identify themselves 2 times an hour. They have those like, here you're watching, KCBS, blah, blah, blah. So we use those times to say, the following advertisers are climate action advertisers. And to learn more, log on to blah, 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 blah. So we do things on the screen, online, on billboards. I could show you billboards that identify that as a distinctly different ad product. This is climate action media. And CBS has been great about supporting that so that the viewer knows what they're watching. I guess if I could take this all the way out, it would be like, tune in to Katie Couric tonight and do your part to fight global warming. Right? How does that work? Right? But the advertisers that are advertising on that show are purchasing climate action advertising. So you can, the more people that tune in, the higher the price for that particular type of advertising is. The greater share, the more that CBS will take that over to fund the environment.
But if I'm Clorox and I'm buying ad,
yeah,
does anybody know when my ad comes on that it is part of?
Yeah, that's what I was saying with those promos.
So in a separate promo,
it's after.
They get another mention.
It's after it runs. So after it runs, it says the following are climate action, blah blah blah. So it's what they call bookended. Okay, and the reason why we have to bookend it is that creative, that 30-second creative, comes from the agency. Okay, the only way that you can do like, it's an SC Johnson company. You know how you see that little thing in the bottom of the screen? That has to be done at the creative, at the agency. So we have to do it at the station, and we do what they call bookended. Yeah. I appreciate you asked that question because I did not go into why is CBS willing to fund solar panels. Not that they do care, but it's also part of how they grow their business. Yeah.
So jumping off of that, because I was pointing that earlier, so, and this may be simplified and maybe very wrong,
yeah.
You are, because you're green, which is good, PR. You are bringing more business to CBS, and then they're kind of subsidizing the added-on things that you do, the service things that you do.
Yeah, to attract that additional dollar,
Right.
because for every additional dollar they're getting the line share.
Right.
So it's good business for CBS.
Absolutely.
It's very good business for CBS, and that's why this is sustainable. So they've become really our media partner.
But what makes it good business for Clorox?
Well, it makes it good business for Clorox because they're now able, like Clorox, for example, has GreenWorks, right? I've got a green product. And if I can promote my green product and green for you in your community, then in my view, it gives greater credibility to their product, that they connect with you differently. It's like every time I talk to you about my product, I'm going to green for you. Not from trees in Brazil, but where you live, in Miami.
So they actually have to tell me that.
We at CBS tell you that they're doing that. Back to that promo, right? We do it through the news, we do it with the promos, we do it online, we do it through radio, we do it through a number of, we do press events where we do ribbon cuttings, and these are the advertisers, and we kind of build a campaign around suggesting who these, we embed them in the show. I mean, that show was product placement, right? That's just a big old product placement bonanza. So we do it on the show, we do it, bookend the commercials, we do it through the news, we do it through the ribbon cuttings. And so ultimately, Clorox is getting more. They're not just getting a 30-second commercial. They're getting a totally different connection with a consumer and a city. I mean, this isn't just green, right? This is also about creating jobs, saving taxpayers money. If you knew that you could, I guess back to your question, this is really presenting the advertiser with the same challenge or decision that the consumers make. The whole idea around green products is for you, when you walk down the aisle and you see that all your choices, the green advertiser is saying, buy my product so that you can do your part in cleaning up the environment. I'm going to the advertiser and saying, I'm asking you to make the same decision. You can buy green advertising or you can buy non-green advertising. Which one of these do you want? I'm going to reach your audience. This is CBS. I'm not talking about some public access channel. I'm talking about quality media. So you have that same decision that you can make as an advertiser. And what if I told you that if you spent more money with me, that I could tell you, based on how much you spent with me, how many green jobs you're going to create? I know for every $43,000, we create a green job that goes through our program. If I told you you're going to create jobs, you're going to save taxpayers money, and you're going to improve the environment by choosing CBS disproportionately over the competitor. Now, for many of you in the room that know ad campaigns, you can't go from a 25 share to a 75 share because you can't, it compromises your reach, okay? But you can go from 25 to 35 or 25 to 40 and really not compromise your audience. So there are limitations to, I hate to use this word, share shift, but there's limitations to it, but ultimately, if you're prepared to move more of your money here, then you're essentially demonstrating to the consumer that you're willing, with your ad spend, to do the same thing you're asking me to do at retail. I mean, shouldn't it work that way? And my hope would be, ultimately, that the environmental community would look at a big advertiser and say, if you would have spent just 10% of your ad campaign with this company, do you know how many jobs you would have created, or how much you would have saved the taxpayer, or what you would have done to CO2? Why didn't you do that? Tell the American consumer why you didn't do it. Well, I couldn't reach my audience. I couldn't, tell them.
So one last question. How do you make money from this, from anybody else?
Well, that's a good question. I make money off, I essentially get a piece of that deal. Okay, I get a piece of what of my, the sales that I increase for the CBS Corporation. And I will tell you, and Brianna is familiar with this, is that I'm essentially in the process of becoming part of their corporation. So essentially I will be doing this as a member of CBS. And which for me is really exciting. As an entrepreneur, here I am telling you guys to strike out and really do this on your own. And I believe in that. But I've had one job since I graduated from UCLA. I graduated from UCLA, I had a job for 3 years, and I've had 2 businesses since. My first environmental business and this business. And I'm now faced with the opportunity to go and run a division of a big media company and ultimately really define that intersection. And I got to tell you, I'm excited about it. I'm excited to have the resources of a huge media company to be able to inspire people with a broad spectrum of media assets to really get the message out, and to also see and leverage those media assets to actually do something meaningful in the world. And so I'm going corporate again, and I'm okay with it.
The idea, look, the idea of everything we do is that if you can break new ground and it becomes mainstream, that's really how the world gets saved. So,
right.
So
that's,
congratulations.
Well, thank you very much, and I, again, really appreciate this opportunity to, be here and talk about my own experience. And as you look at your careers and sort of put those lenses on for yourself in terms of the issues that matter. There are business models for every sort of social issue we face, and I guess probably every generation has said this, but now more than ever, we really need to attract the best and the brightest to bring their energy, their creativity, their passion, and their business minds to solving problems. So I appreciate you having me.
Paul, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks.
I have to say, I probably speak for all of us when I say that's absolutely the most unique business model that we've had the opportunity to hear about. And don't apologize for anything, because kudos, we talk all the time about how you can change the world and go out and change the world, and certainly being able to come up with a model that is not only palatable but meaningful and makes a difference, and then to give that model to CBS, which is such a huge change maker in the world, that's amazing. So I won't make you wear this USC hat. If I'm going to have it, we have a Lunch and Learn every month. We have a couple postcards on your table, and then there's additional Lunch and Learn opportunities that are not listed on that card. Our next one is February 25th. It is Lori Vogel, who's the head of Nike Considered, which is their sustainable product division at Nike. Really hope you guys will come. We really can't thank you enough for being here, and we're sorry for
Hey, I want to say too is that if anyone ever wants to contact me, has an idea, they want to bounce off me or